If someone you love passes away and there's an HDB involved, what happens next? Can you inherit it? Can you sell it? What if you already own a flat or a condo? In this video, I'll walk you through what really happens to an HDB when the owner passes away, whether it's the joint or sole ownership with or without a will, and whether you are planning to keep or sell the flat. You need to get the legal steps right. Most families get stuck in confusion, not knowing who can take over the flat, how to transfer the name, or when they are allowed to sell. If you get the legal process wrong, the flat might be stuck for months. Hi, I'm Caleb, a real estate agent in Singapore, and I've guided many families through inherited HDB cases from grant of probate to transmission to finally getting the unit sold. So, if you're dealing with an HDB inheritance or preparing in advance, here's everything you need to know step by step. What happens to your loved one HDBs when they die? Most families get this wrong. So, first thing you need to decide if you want to inherit or sell. You have two choices. Do you intend to stay or you want to sell? So if you want to keep the flat, you make sure you need to meet the eligibility criteria, such as you form a family nucleus, such as you are single and above 35, and so on and so forth. Or if you're orphan, both you and your brother can take over the flat, and so on and so forth. Of course, you need to consider costs like property tax, maintenance, and conservancy charges as well. And if you want to sell the flat, you must of course apply for grant of probate, letter of administrations, depending whether you have will or no will. And of course, you need to complete the transmission before you can sell, and eventually the proceeds will go to the estate. So let's talk about inheriting the flat first. You can inherit the HDB flat but only own one. You might also sell your current HDB if you own one. So if you do not own any HDB, you can own this inherited HDB. But if you currently own one HDB already, you must sell one of it. So applies whether you fully own or you co-own the HDB itself. So the first scenario is that you already own the HDB. Option one, you can keep the inherited HDB and you sell your current HDB within 6 months if you meet the MOP already. Of course, you must meet the HDB ownership criteria where you are more than 21 and there is family ties like the family nucleus and so on and so forth. Option two, you keep your current HDB that you already owned before that, and then you sell the inherited HDB within 6 months of the death, so that especially if it meets MOP. If not met the MOP, it's important you appeal to HDB for an early sale. So scenario two, you own a private property right now. Can you inherit the HDB? Yes, you can, but it depends on when the HDB was purchased. If of course the HDB was purchased long ago, before 2010, if you want to inherit it, you can, but you must move into the HDB. If the HDB is bought on or after 30th August 2010, you only can keep one. Either you sell the inherited one, or you live in it and sell the private property within 6 months. So what happens during that 30th August was that there was a new cooling measures such that the government do not want private property owners to inherit a subsidized housing, which makes it such that it's a profiteering kind of scenario. So on or before, there was no such rule. That's why you are still able to do so. But if it's after that, then HDB does not allow it to be. Okay? And one thing is that when you inherit a property, there's no inheritance tax, meaning to say that you do not need to pay any tax to inherit this particular property that you're inheriting to the government. If this helped clarify what happens to your HDB after death, give this video a like and subscribe for more real estate breakdowns just like this. So right now we discuss if you decide to sell the property, you need to first understand whether is it the deceased person, was he a co-owner or sole owner. For example, right now he was a co-owner, and it need to go and find out what kind of tenancy type was he holding. Was he holding a joint tenancy or was he holding a tenancy in common? Joint tenancy, right, have this rule such that it's a rule of survivorship, meaning you say if your shares is automatically passed on to the survivor if you pass away. So your interest is automatically passed on to the surviving joint owner, and it overrides any wills that you have set in place. And the surviving parties will just file the notice of death with SLA through HDB, and the surviving party will get the full share of the property. Whereas if you are in tenancy in common, the deceased person's shares will go towards the estate. So how does it work? So if you are sole owner or tenancy in common, the property goes towards the estate. So it depends next whether the deceased person has a will or no will. If there's a will, the owner can nominate who is able to inherit the property. So you can state what is the beneficiary. Do I want my son and my daughter to inherit the property, or they will own it in equal shares, or 60-40 or 70-30, and so on and so forth. But if there is no will, it will follow the Intestate Succession Act. So what is Intestate Succession Act? It is basically the purpose of this act, right, is to explain how someone's estate is distributed if they die without a will. So intestate simply means a person dies without a will, or the will doesn't cover all the property. So it could include like movable properties, or it could include also immovable property like your HDB flats in Singapore. So Intestate Succession Act states that it depends on which rule follows which circumstances. Like for example, you are a married person and you have a spouse only, then there is no kids, no parents, the spouse will get 100%. Okay, or if let's say you have a spouse and kids and your spouse get 50, your kids get the remainder 50%. Or if there is no spouse, there is only kids, then the kids will share equally. Or if there is spouse and parents but no kids, the spouse will get 50, the parents will get 50. So on and so forth. Or if there is no relative among all, then the Singapore government will take all, which is something that you do not want it to happen. So it's important to set a will, because set a will, you can distribute according to your wishes. Don't miss out on more practical tips like this. Hit the like and subscribe button so you're prepared, whether it's for yourself or your loved ones. So how does this tenancy in common with no will works out? So one of you will appoint yourself as the administrator. It could be the son, it could be the wife, or it could be your sibling, and so on and so forth will appoint themselves as the administrator. The administrator rule will be to apply for the letter of administration through the lawyer, or you can do it yourself also, but it's quite cumbersome. So after obtaining the letter of administration, you will need to go down to HDB to apply for this thing called transmission. What is this transmission? It simply means the process of transferring the name of the estate from the deceased person to the administrator temporarily, so that you can sell the property under your name. So this letter of administration looks something like this. Letter of administration of this deceased person of this late address and died on and granted to the administrator's name as the lawful sister or one of the next of kin, and so on and so forth. So with this letter, you can bring down to HDB to do the transmission. So right now we discuss if there is a will, what happens? A will draft the wishes of the deceased on the distribution method, how they want to distribute it, whether they're going to give 50-50 or 90-10 and so on and so forth, or they want to give to a charity organization, it's also okay. The estate will be passed on to the beneficiaries according to the wishes of the deceased. So beneficiaries are people who are taking on the money or taking on the flat and stuff like that. So if there's a will, you will need to apply for a grant of probate. So one of you will appoint yourself as the executor as well. Again, it's very similar to the grant of letter of administration. The executor rule will be to apply for the grant of probate through the lawyer, and after obtaining the grant of probate, you need to go down to HDB to apply for transmission. The transmission is also the process whereby you transfer the name of the estate from the deceased to the executor. So the executor will execute the entire sale of it all. So if there's a will, this is how it will look like. My trustee, I shall have the power to sell, call in my property, and so on and so forth. I shall bequeath all my rights and sale and interest in the housing board at this particular address, and the proceeds will be given to my daughter or stuff like that, and so on and so forth. So this is how the will somewhat looks like also. So once transmission is done, HDB will allow the executor or administrator to do the intent to sell, and that's when you're allowed to start selling. So once the sale is done, HDB will issue a check, and this check will be towards the estate's name, estate of deceased Tan Akau, and so on and so forth. Then the executor can open a bank account under the estate of Tan Akau's name and bank in a check and withdraw the money subsequently from there. I hope this helped. If you need help selling HDB, you can contact me. I'm able to assist you with it. My contact number is over. Have a question about inheriting or selling a HDB? Drop it in the comments below. I reply to every one of them. And check out my next video about the ultimate guide on selling your HDB, so that you can be sure the entire process and timeline when you want to sell your property. See you. Goodbye.